Welcome to Business as Unusual. Once again, we are here so that you know exactly what to do. And even when sometimes we don't know what to do, what are some of the options that are out there? I'm Ingrid Pika, and I'm so excited to have you join me today. In addition to the Business as Unusual, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Gary Barnes. Gary is a very special friend of mine. I have been his client. He's been my coach. We have partnered together. I know I have grown tremendously. And I've also grown with his, as we like to affectionately call it, the Gary tribe. The people that know Gary are all just amazing in the community. And I would encourage you that at the end of this session, we're going to go ahead and have Gary share his information and how you can get in touch with him. An amazing person, one of the best people around, and especially if you are in the business community, I would encourage you to connect. So, Gary, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here. And, thank you for the accolades. And I really feel the same way about you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Gary, some people think that we're in a little bit of a scary time right now. Obviously, there are a lot of changes. And I know that as I've worked with you long-term now, that one of the things you always talk about is that, is it a good economy or a bad economy? And then there are different takes on that. So what are some things that you would recommend, not just right now, but when someone looks at this in a year or two, what are some of the things that a business should always be watching for?
That's a great question, Ingrid, because every economy is challenging in some way. If we were to do business the same way now as we did, say, in 2000 even, we didn't have the availability and technology that we have now, that we just didn't have it then. And so what is it that how does our perfect clients, how do they take in the information? How do they want to be connected to? And it's really about listening. It's about asking questions, and it's about serving. And so when you have those three elements, that you're able to actually connect and create products, services, and deliveries the way the economy and the population are taking it in, how they want it. It's not about us. I mean, that's really the fun part, is we think, well, I like it. It's not about whether we like it or not. It's about, are they seeing it? Are they able to assimilate it? And then are they coming towards you to receive it?
That's so well put. And can you give us an example of when we talk about, it's about the connection between the client and my business, for example? What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes we will position what people need. And if we're behind the curve or ahead of the curve, they will not even see the relevance of it. And so what we're looking at is what does the community desire? Now, one of the commercials that I have always referenced to is the 10-minute abs. And it's one of the most successful infomercials on TV, has been running for years. And they are focusing on what? It's not about health. It's not about, having longevity. It's about the abs, the sexiness. And then when you get that package, there's a diet plan, there's all this other stuff that is not just going to be a 10-minute process. And so I ask people, particularly in the health industry, do Americans want to be healthy? And they almost always say yes. And I said, well, if that's true, why is McDonald's the #1 restaurant in America? What do Americans really want? They want quick, they want cheap, and they want it to taste good. So how do we package what we have that will actually give them a better benefit using the three elements that they are desiring and what they're wanting to invest in? And so we have to adjust our verbiage, our delivery, and our really the promise of the result to where they will engage, and to be able then to get that better result that we know is going to be better than maybe going to McDonald's.
Yeah, I know that a lot of, like, when I work with entrepreneurs especially, this is where they get stuck. and how do they translate what they do into the benefit that their clients and their market can receive? What are some of the things that you use or that you ask your clients when they work with you to help them through that process?
Really, it's using the Stephen Covey mindset of start with the end in mind. You know, what is it that they want to receive? And sometimes they will give you an answer that really isn't the end result. Uh, a story that's coming up for me is I was speaking on a cruise to a financial planning organization. And when I asked the question, what are you wanting? What is it that your goal is for you and your business? One of the individuals said, $1 million in the bank. And most of the time, when somebody says something like that, we'll accept, oh, hey, that's great, that's wonderful, that's whatever. But I asked an additional question. I said, why? And he said, because it will give me security. And I was brave enough to ask one more question, will it? And so what I was doing is going beyond the numbers. And he looked at me and he started to answer and I got stuck. And he goes, damn you. You know, it was like I had gone to the core of what he said, but what was the why? What was the result of it? And I got an email, and he became a client after that, you know, interestingly enough. But 2 weeks later, he said, thank you, because we went beyond the dollars to what the dollars would do. So when we talk about health, what would the health allow us to do? So for me, with you know, many people know that I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in 1988. My going beyond the diagnosis was to be able to play with my grandkids, to be able to see them grow up, to go to their graduations and weddings and all that kind of stuff. And so I went beyond wanting to be healthy to what that would mean for me. And that's really the key, is why are we doing what we're doing? And we hear about the big why, but most of the time we don't understand that. We think the big why is the big car or the big boat or the airplane or whatever that might be. But what is it really? When it's all said and done, what is the most important value that the person wants? And when we uncover that, the next logical step is to engage in your product or service if it's a pattern or a connection to that why, not the initial, you know, response maybe that they give you.
So what I'm hearing then is that for a business owner, that they, especially at times when things are evolving and changing in their market, that they connect with their client or customer and ask them a little bit of the whys of what the benefits are for what they're offering. Yeah. And that will give them oftentimes the language in which to address additional audiences to draw that connection, and this is the importance, and it allows them that.
You know, and there are so many options today. That's the other side, is people get confused and inundated, and then they get immobilized because they don't know which way to turn. And I think for us as facilitators, whether it be a product or a service, is one of the opportunities and obligations, responsibilities that we have is to break that down into bite-sized pieces to where they can see a process and they can take the next step, not necessarily, you know, to eat the elephant all at once, which many people want. And that goes back for me, the concept of momentum, where it doesn't necessarily mean speed, it means movement. And so as we break these elements down, they are able to see before them, and it takes away, and here's the biggest challenge I think everyone in business has, there's a fear factor, whether it be on your side as a business owner or as the client customer on the other side. Is the promise there? Is it real? Is it something that I'm going to risk rejection? Whatever the fear is. And as we break this down for ourselves as well as for the client, then we become, you know, this is going to sound like a woo-woo word, but we become in harmony, we become in balance. And so our perfect clients see us as that perfect solution, and they are drawn towards us. We don't have to convince them and cajole them. It's really that symbiotic relationship that happens.
That's very well put, and especially your mention of the fear. I think we've all gone through that, and insecurities. Am I good enough? Is somebody need this? How do we move forward? What happens if, and such? So Gary, you're very visible in our, not just the Colorado community. I've seen you through your entire nation and even internationally. And many people, they're connected with you because they know you and they get to know you and all the good stuff that you offer and provide. What do you feel makes a business leader truly a business leader?
As you said that, there was one word that popped in my mind, and that is influencer. Is that when we're willing to be open enough to where we're visible to the public and honest in our communication without an agenda to convert, to control, to, even to, the word that's coming to me is condemn, but it's where we're open to where people have that flexibility to be themselves and to be able to go into areas and to, again, I use the word brave, have the courage to maybe have people not necessarily like you. But what I've told clients forever is that I may not always tell you what you want to hear, but I will always tell you the truth as I know it. And so having that ability and to have that influence, people will, have a choice whether or not your message, your mission is something that they relate to. And then they, again, organically will want to follow you, will want to be a part of the tribe. And for me, it's about none of us are any better than anybody else. I'm just the kid next door. I just happen to be, at a different mile marker on the road. People have asked me, what is the right road? And I go, there's only one. We're just at different mile markers. And my big desire anymore is to pass the batons on to other people because none of us are going to be here forever. And to be able to share and to encourage those to be able to pull and pick up that baton and take on the message and the mission is something that's really important to me.
What a true and brilliant recipe for anyone to become a leader within their own realm. Thank you for sharing that, Gary. I have one more question for you. We've talked about fear, we've talked about uncertainties, and we've talked about changes in the business industries that each of us are in. When we struggle and we have these apparent barriers that whether we put it in front of us or whether our competition has placed it or circumstances have brought, when we face these walls in front of us, Gary, what are the best ways for someone to remain motivated, to stay inspired and still hang in there and keep going?
You're talking about the secret sauce. And I'm going to, and I hadn't planned on this, but I'm going to give you a kudo. It goes back to your book. Stop, step back, and grow. It's to take a pause. In fact, there's a common client that we have that had lost a little bit of their momentum. And what I said is, why are you doing what you're doing? Get outside of yourself. What is your mission? What is the actual mission beyond it? And it happens to be, for most of us, a demographic. It could be children, it could be adults with disabilities, it could be all kinds of things, but there is something beyond us. And once we get us out of the way, in fact, as a professional speaker, one of the things that I teach is to get it out of your head, get it into your heart and out of your mouth, because you are not the message, you are the subject, but not the message. And so when we take us out of the equation from the result end of it, we are able to give authentically and feel the fear, but do it anyway. Susan Jeffers' book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, because we're always going to have the fear. It's always going to be there. It's normal, natural. Don't be afraid of being afraid, because it's really an endorsement that in some ways you're out there far enough doing what you're doing in a realm that you may not know what the actual result's going to be. And so when we do that, we have permission to risk. And when we do that, we're going to see results that are beyond our wildest expectations.
That's so heartwarming. And so for you that are watching this, and you may be feeling stuck, you may be feeling uninspired, That really is what it is all about. When we're talking about business as unusual, this is the way that you can still make anything happen. And it's the stepping stones, breaking it down into those little itty bitty doable pieces that will make that one step at a time a success, and recognizing and celebrating the successes that you have had. And as you accomplish them, as you jump from one stone to the next, and you've overcome whatever those fears may be, or they may still be present, but look at the people you can impact. Look at the changes that you've made. A beach is made of millions and millions and millions of grains of sand, and look how much it can be enjoyed in the beauty. So, Gary, you have so much wisdom. You have so much expertise in the business world and for the authors themselves. When someone wants to reach you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You know, I've always opened up my email, my direct email. I answer all of my emails. Is Gary at Gary Barnes, BARNES, international spelled out.com. And I have a big presence on Facebook. I welcome people to connect with me on there. I do a lot of video and YouTube work. So my YouTube channel is another way to follow what is being produced. And it's really about the connections. I just love to connect and build communities. I would welcome anyone, if you have questions, to reach out, or just to want to connect on social media, please do.
Very good. We'll be sure to post that under the comments. If you have any particular questions that you would like Gary or me to answer for you, just post them in the comments below. We'll definitely get back with you as quickly as possible, or reach out to Gary at the email. Again, we'll have that listed. You're welcome to reach out to me as well. I'm Ingrid Pica. You can reach me at ingrid@ingridpica.com. I would love for you also, this recording will be on my YouTube channel as well. Go ahead and subscribe to that channel, and you can continue to get all kinds of tips and actual how-tos on getting your business as unusual so you too can succeed to what your desires are. Thank you so much for joining us. Love you all.